Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be talking about Alliance War, and more specifically about Alliance War matchmaking, because recently there have been a more and more increasing number of discussions and threads opened about people not being satisfied with the matchmaking. And I have been personally asked for my input as well multiple times, on comment section or via line messages, so on and so forth. And I definitely have seen this issue being picked up by more and more people in the community. And there's also quite a big thread on the forums about flawed matchmaking. And Quick Pick has done quite a bit of research, and I'm not going to go through all of it because there is like absolute plethora of information combined with all the inputs from DNA and all your usual suspects. But the point being is that current matchmaking basically checks your prestige as well as Alliance War rating, and that kind of determines the matchups. And that's kind of like a part of the problem to a degree, because there can be alliances that have high prestige and aren't too capable in AW and aren't focused in AW, so there are quite counterpart of alliances getting really easy victories as of that, because prestige is still something that's relevant. And also there is also a subset of alliances that kind of like mingle in between their own sized and prestige alliances, and therefore achieve higher placements in like master or platinum brackets than relatively alliance who has a lot harder matchups can. So you end up with a situation where, let's say, relatively similar war capable alliance with 20 million rating and lower prestige places much higher than the same alliance strength wise, kind of like with 40 million rating, let's say, and higher prestige, because they get harder matchups. And the problem is because there is no perfect system. Right, first things first, this system definitely doesn't work because they only started taking prestige in calculation due to the huge war rating manipulations that were happening previously, and that was quite often done by simply tanking off seasons or whatever. Now currently there's still a way to kind of like bypass this entire thing to a degree by using shell alliances, and there is a very unfortunate bottom line that we can conclude with that. It's the simple fact that if there is a way how to manipulate these things in your favor, typically there will always be people who do that, and quite often that becomes common practice in the higher end ranked alliances. Now, and why? In past, yes, we had migrated alliances a couple of times. We did tank as well when tanking was popular and everybody was doing it. Recently, we haven't been looking at alliance wars too seriously, so we definitely haven't used any shell alliances or anything like that. But that definitely is a thing, and that happens whether I like it or whether you like it. There are people who always will find any possible advantage, and the problem is it's technically not against the rules as well, so there will always be people who use that as an excuse or as a justification, and I can put my hands up in there. I have taken part of that in the past as well, as in like alliance war tanking, where you purposely lose wars that you should, so you get a lower alliance war rating, and then you might get matched easier opponents later on in the season when it matters, so on and so forth. So that is a thing. And I think currently it would be close to impossible to actually design a perfect system that satisfies everybody. And I know that many people will come up with many suggestions. Why don't you just do that? Or why don't you just do that? But no way, shape or form, the way you cut it, there will either be a way how to bypass it or how to abuse it, or there will be a large group of players left unsatisfied. Like there are people who are saying like, top alliances should match each other much more often, and then basically nothing below master get matched. But why should they only have the hard words and never have an easy one, versus other opponents who relatively get by easier, and therefore by amassing these wins can overtake them? There are a lot of pros and cons in whichever camp you sit. Clearly, obviously, I'm a part of an alliance myself. I know the changes that I would prefer, and I know the changes that I would not like. And I do not genuinely think that Kabam can come up with a solution here to satisfy all parties involved, and that is extremely important to keep in mind. Because if they're not doing anything, they're gonna be scrutinized by player base by ignoring the issue. If they change it to, I don't know, prestige based, They're going to be scrutinized by many top-end alliances who don't take alliance war seriously and therefore will lose every single war as a result of that, because they will constantly get matched by the toughest alliances in the game. If you do it only alliance war rating wise, which I currently believe could potentially be the best middle ground to go for, because it's much harder to manipulate the system. But if you do that only by alliance war rating again, then there will still be the alliances that switch from shell to shell and start each alliance war season with the minimum alliance war rating required to stay in tier 1, so on and so forth. So there are downsides to each and every kind of criteria they can use, because none of them are like objective individually. So the best options could be by taking in all factors in mind, I suppose. Prestige, size, and war rating, and then somehow mix them together. But that would be extremely complicated system. Or it's time to change it. It's time, perhaps, in my opinion, to do something fresh with Alliance War, because Alliance Wars have been feeling more and more stale lately. The map, I think, is a relatively somewhat failure compared to previous map, because it doesn't seem as interesting, at least to me personally. And I definitely have lost my spark for Alliance Wars in general. Don't take it nowhere near as seriously as I did for the first 10 seasons or so. And I think that same goes for many other players, because the rewards don't hold anymore that big of a value. Even though rewards just got revamped, even after revamp, they're nothing to die for. They're not really worth to justify that extra amount of effort and pressure you should go under in order to kind of like achieve the top positions. And in addition to that, they just seem old and boring a bit. They are trying to spice things up with these modifiers, but seems that every time they pretty much fail, because previous seasons we had Dodge and Bulwark as dominant nodes. Now we have Siphon, which is pain in the bottom to deal with, and everybody's using Siphon, so again it's immediately stale and boring. So my personal suggestion would be just to kind of shake the entire thing up once again. I can on top of my head name 2 different alternatives what we could have for seasons, and they could test either of them. Number 1 is to occasionally launch a tournament style Alliance War, like a bracket, where you kind of like top, I don't know, 6428 or 256 teams enter, and then you kind of like battle your bracket up for the first place and as high as you can get, and then just launch kind of like regular off-season wars throughout that tournament. As soon as you kind of like lose or flip out, you just get entered in this regular bracket and play for regular Alliance War rewards, and also up the individual Alliance War reward a bit throughout. Or the second idea, which is also fairly relatively simple, structure everything at least towards the top in brackets of 12. Yes, in brackets of 12, because currently Alliance War season is 12 wars, so it should be brackets of 13, I believe. Either way, so make it bracket wise, and how like I don't know, football Premier League or whatever, where you have the top division, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, Division 4, so on and so forth, and then at some point just kind of like make it an open division below spots 200 or 300 or whatever, right? Because then all these matchmaking issues would simply go away, because you would be forced to play every single person in your bracket. If there are 13 alliances, 12 wars per season, and then you play each and every single one of them. Have top 2 promotions, bottom 2 relegates, and then you can kind of climb your ranks or slide down to your ranks, and that could be a relatively decent alternative to try. But again, obviously this method again has its downsides in case teams migrate, and what do you do with empty alliances. So you'd have to work out the kinks to kind of like ensure that when you start a new season all teams are fully formed, and if an alliance go bust, then figure out how to do some sort of buy system or something, because alliances do change relatively frequently. But it would still be a decent model to work for towards the higher end top kind of like prizes, or anything else really. These are just like an ideas up in there. I'm sure somebody can come up with an even better idea or something more interesting. My point being is, just because Alliance War matchmaking seems broken, And just because this is like the only thing that we have known since Alliance Wars season started, doesn't mean this is the best way, or doesn't mean this is the correct way Alliance Wars should be conducted. I think it's about high time some stuff gets jiggled about, because more and more people are losing interest in Alliance Wars, and that can't be good for business in terms of potion sales, so on and so forth, because when Alliance War seasons initially started, it was quite common practice to boost for every war, or buy an audience worth of boosts at the beginning of season or whatever. Now, at least from my personal experience, I just kind of use the boost to show the how. Potions as well, use them sparingly, mainly by the glory. Don't really want to waste any units in Alliance War, even though I still play typically on like Platinum 1 Masters level for most part. So that means it's definitely getting less and less popular. There's definitely less and less pressure. There are definitely less and less people interested to push hard, which can be good for Kabam's business. So I think it's in their own best interest to kind of like shape things up. And they did the rewards revamp, which is cool enough, but still those rewards do not seem even close to lucrative enough for everybody to kind of like be up in arms and go for a march for a victory. It's kind of like, okay, cool, they buffed the rewards, and we're gonna see which ones of those we get. To put in comparison, gifting event rewards were miles better than Alliance Wars season rewards, right? Even after a revamp, one gifting event wailing out season for a week or 2 weeks could effectively replace 4 months of the top Alliance War position. So there is a huge disparity in the amount of top end research that can be earned, and having a little drips and drops increase towards the top of Alliance brackets doesn't really excite anyone that much, to be fair, at least as far as I have heard in chat rooms, so on and so forth. So my point being is, again, to recap the video, I do not think there is one single thing Kabam can currently do to sort out everybody's problems, right? No matter which way they approach this problem, there will be groups of players unsatisfied, and I urge everybody to keep that in mind and kind of like postpone your frustration a bit, so long as they actually do something. If they ignore the issue and don't reply to people, then the hell with them. Tell them exactly what you think about them, because that is just a swine thing to do. But point being is, whatever they can come up with, there's going to be a lot of criticism, so you have to be ready for it. My personal opinion, if they want to stick with Alliance War season, they should either A, focus solely on Alliance War rating, because they have strictly limited the amount we can manipulate that rating. That doesn't solve the problem of shell alliances, but it's a step in kind of right direction for general better matchmaking. Or they should include all 3 parameters of Alliance War rating, Alliance Prestige, and Alliance Size in consideration when they're doing matching. But then again, there are going to be many so-called retirement alliances that end up being relatively bullied. So again, there is not a perfect solution. So instead of trying or finding a perfect solution, I would definitely urge Kabam just to scrap the whole concept for a bit, try out something completely brand new, and see how that goes. Because why not, right? I mean, it's a failing enterprise currently anyways, so you cannot make less than 0. But all that being said, I think that's pretty much it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think about Alliance War. How do you guys approach it? What would be your suggestions? What do you like about current system? What do you don't like about current system? Any of the suggestions I mentioned in the video, do you enjoy them? Would you like to play them? But all in all, everything being said, I'm done for now. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll catch you guys soon. See ya.